I'd say I'm bullish because I have hope. Bitcoiners is finally a place of people that have the inner strength to handle looking at the world with eyes wide open, right? They're willing to see how deep the darkness goes of what's really going on out there, of just how bad it is. Yet they're willing to stand there with the faith to discover how we're going to evolve into fixing it and healing it, right? I mean, we're willing to sit back and look at it, right? Like they got control of the money printer. They've got control of the media to manipulate consent of the masses. They got control of all the regulatory authorities, and they got control of the monopoly of violence. But I still have hope, because at the end of the day, they're freaking incompetent. They've spent their whole lives used to having all that power and using that to manufacture consent and box everybody into a corner. And they've not really had to be creative or smart or tactical or hardworking. Like, they've never had to do what we've had to do. So we've got all these awakening plebs who've lived under this friction of all this opposition their entire lives, and still they're making it. Now we've got the benefit of Bitcoin. We're not getting robbed from anymore. We're actually gaining rather than getting behind. And all that creative workforce, all that power of all that ability and skills and wisdom we've had to master in order to survive in the midst of such a negative sum world is going to be applied into, as this money printer breaks, going out there and actually resetting the world back into a frame of truth and justice again. They don't stand a freaking chance.
Well, that's what happens when you prioritize truth over everything else, right? Over credentials, over status, over previous successes. If your true highest priority is truth, then you're just dealing with ideas. And if someone comes in and they got, lots of accolades and stuff, but their idea is shit, now personality will determine whether you tell them they're fucking morons and they fuck off, or if you just say, bad idea, next, but this is what's so great and so valuable about this network of people that are interacting. Like, there's an unwritten understanding that all we care about is the truth of the matter. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the existing system, the culture, deeper spiritual, philosophical ideas, technical components, and that kind of stuff. Like, we want to know the truth. And it's almost like an expected reaction to a culture predicated on lies. Like, you would expect that, right? If you're coming out of a culture that lying and deceit is everywhere, lying and deceit and deception is everywhere, then the response to that, the blowback, is going to be a culture that necessarily prioritizes truth as like the most important thing. And what's really interesting about Bitcoin, of course, is like, if we agree that the lie in the fiat money system then creates a culture filled with lies, well, if you can see, to this point about people kind of waking up, if you can see like, oh, I see the lie in the top of that pyramid, then you begin to see the lie, its manifestation further down the pyramid. And then you say, okay, well, what happens if we remove that lie? I.e., what happens if we have a fair money system like Bitcoin? Well, I don't know exactly how culture is going to bubble up and emerge around this thing, but seems to me that it's probably going to have a lot more truth imbued into it. It's going to be a lot less tolerant of lying and deception. And I want that, because that's a more fair, just world where, again, in response to the world that we've been forced to come up in. And, it's so cool. And I think part of the reason why we all jive so well is because we're all those kind of like initial people that popped our head out of it all and like looked around. We're like, whoa, this is fucked up. And we found a really good solution. And because we're like, there's this shelling point of truth that we're all coming together on, and we're prioritizing truth in that way, we develop these really great relationships with one another, even though we come from all sorts of different places and have different beliefs. But we're like, we unify based on that, based on our prioritizing truth and using that truth to combat this disgusting world of deception and lies. And it's pretty fucking exciting, Yeah.
And because of that, you actually develop this idea that that's actually truth. That the lie is truth, because the entire rules of our structure, of our entire system, just mold themselves to whatever you wish they were, as long as you get a bunch of people to wish it with you. And the costs of that are finally coming due. The reality is finally stepping up and saying, you done this shit too long. I'm going to punch you in the face now. I'm sorry, but it's got to happen. And over here, Bitcoin is actually changes that frame so powerfully because you realize there is no way to change the rules. The rules don't change for anybody.